Next question is from Mickey Mickey Mercudgeon. So he's got a number of questions here. First one is, what do you think of the Back to Eden style of apple tree pruning demonstrated by Paul Gauci? Have you seen this film?
I haven't seen his pruning technique. I have seen in his Back to Eden things. I saw his orchard and so on, and like it wouldn't be what I would do. Like it is a way of doing it. And again, you have to put things in context. If it's in your yard and you have 2 fruit trees, go for it. You can do anything. When I'm pruning and I'm putting up thousands of trees.
Yeah, you've got thousands.
Then no, I'm not going to spend, if I have to spend more than 5 minutes on a tree, like I'm wondering, why don't I just put the chainsaw to this tree? Like, which if it was in my yard, I could spend 2 hours on it.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's where, put things in context. And yes, go ahead, try it, do it. But just remember that anytime a branch is horizontal, it will produce less suckers. But if it's suckers, it's probably because, one, it's over pruned, and so that tree hasn't reached its height yet. So it's trying to get back to the height that tree should be at. Anyway, there's so much. That's why I really want to get this pruning film finished, because there's so many questions about pruning, and it's just a matter of understanding why a tree does it. Because once you understand that, pruning becomes really easy. Like you see something and you know why it's doing that. But if you don't know why, you're going to probably do a mistake. Like I show people how to, I call it taming the suckers, because I've seen trees that have been badly pruned and the suckers come up like hair on a dog's back. Like it's suckers everywhere.
Yes.
So there is a technique they showed us, and it's how to tame the suckers. And you don't cut anything. You think, well, aren't you cutting suckers? No, you don't cut suckers, because if you cut it, you'll get 2 or 3 the next year. So cutting is the worst thing to do on a sucker. So the French showed us, first of all, you can just pull it off. So you just yank it, because it's like it takes it out by the root, and then you don't get it happening quite as much. But the other thing you do is where you have suckers, you just bend it. So you put your hand on it and you break one to the left, one to the right, one to the left, one to the right. And you go along a branch and you just put your hand on and you bend them. You think, well, they're going to crack. Yes, some of them will crack, some will die. But it doesn't matter, because once you've bent it, that branch, so yeah, if it was a sucker and then it gets bent, so you take your hand and you put it and you crack it. Now it's horizontal. What do you think that branch is going to do?
It's going to be a fruit branch now?
Exactly. So it goes from being, it wants to go to the sky, and now it goes, oh, I have to produce fruit because I'm horizontal. And you see those trees that have been worked over like that, and you go, oh my God, in 2 years, that tree is loaded with fruit, where in the past you could never tame those suckers, because if you cut them, you're going to get the worst reaction to it. So anyway.
One thing Paul Gauci does is that he, what's that called? He doesn't leave a, like a lot of pruning says you gotta leave a, what's it called? I'm using the word stump, but it's the wrong word. A collar. So the classic advice is don't cut the collar. He cuts everything off flush with the main stem. He removes the collar, removes the whole thing. And he argues that the tree will heal back around that. And I've tried and it seems to work, but I'm not running an orchard.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of trees now with cavities where that's what I did. Because in the early years, and I didn't know, and I was just running the chainsaw down the trunk almost. And all of those trees, for the beginning, you think it's going to heal up. But once you cut that collar, what happens is it takes so long for the surrounding bark to grow back around that the inside rots before it closes. So those are the trees where the chipmunks live and the chickadees nest. So if you want to create bird habitat and stuff, do it that way. I wouldn't recommend it.
His next question is, do russet apple trees have to be pruned differently than other apple trees? Do they tend to set their fruit and spurs at the tips of last season's new growth?
Yeah, they are tip bearers. That's the one tree of apple that I'm still learning. Like I've kind of been stumped with russet.
Really?
I have russet that we planted quite a bit of russets, and it's one that the first years, it doesn't respond like the other trees. And so it's taken me a while. It grows, yeah. So sorry, Mickey, I can't answer it really well just because I haven't learned it really well yet. I mean, I get fruit, and this year I'm getting a lot more, and I'm getting a lot more fruit in the block where I don't prune.
Right, right.
So what happens is the branches grow, and then they start to produce. And because they produce at the tip, it pulls the branch down naturally. So if you pruned, anytime you prune a branch, it's going to stiffen. And if you prune it and it stiffens, then it just keeps growing out rather than being able to bend. So it's all these pruning is it's such a ununderstood thing.
Right. What's the last one here? When pruning, how large a diameter branch can you cut off at the collar of the branch before you have to stop expecting it to be able to heal itself over? I'd
say it doesn't matter what size your fruit tree is, you can cut off a branch. I'm not talking about the trunk, but a branch, even if it's 6 or 8 inches or 10 inches, you can cut it off. It may take 10 years to heal, but if you cut it off properly, and I say properly being, when in doubt, cut it a little longer, and the tree will show you. If you haven't cut into the collar and you left it too long, you'll see there's no healing happening over. So then the next year you can come back and cut it because you'll start to see the collar appear. And then you can come back and cut it properly.
And I guess a good sharp saw and all that sort of stuff is useful too. His last question: some of my apple tree branches have very small white bracket-like fungi growing on them, or fungi. Do you have any idea what it is and what I should do about it, if anything? I'm not comfortable using toxic chemicals. Bracket fungi,
I mean, it's shelf fungi likely. And so they're just showing you that the inside of that branch, you may have a live, your outside, your cambium is live, but there was something happened. Probably what most cases happen is you had a big branch and you decided, I'm going to cut it off there. So that is very hard to heal if you cut a branch and you just leave it like that. You always cut where there is a branch so it can close up that gap. But if you just cut it, because you say, oh, it's growing too close to the house, now I'm going to cut it here. That's a perfect entryway because it's not going to close over for fungi to enter the core, and then you'll have branch fungi, which means the inside of that branch is affected by fungi, and so that will fruit coming out in different places. So it's not something that's going to spread to the whole tree because a tree compartmentalizes any damage, and it will basically wall off even that branch so that it's not going to go down the trunk and so on. It will isolate that branch. So if worst case, you just cut that whole branch off.
I see. All right.